Crime Curious is a true crime podcast that takes an in-depth look into real cases through the lens of a trained investigator and former prosecutor turned judge.
If you are sensitive to expletives, anatomical descriptions, and accurate descriptions of crime scenes, this podcast may not be suitable for you.
Welcome to Crime Curious. I'm Charnell.
I'm Megan.
I'm still Brain Bath Jason.
You are? Are you?
Are you back to Brain Bath Jason?
This week
Apparently.
you're going to be Brain Bath Jason?
Yeah. Sure.
I like him.
Let's shake our gree-gree. I know, I like it too. I just don't think you're going to be able to shake it, man.
I just did.
No, not the gree-gree.
The name.
The name. Yeah, it's who you are on this podcast, and we love it.
It's like one time you do something stupid at the bar and everyone remembers.
Been there.
Oh, gosh. Well, special thanks for today's case to my brother Nick.
No shit.
Yeah.
All
Yep.
right.
He gave me this suggestion, and I've actually put it off for a while simply because this case has been covered a lot because it's messy, it's tragic, and it's full of legal chaos, Megan.
Oh,
I mean,
Joey.
Jason,
How I
Jason
describe
too,
my
but
life.
Megan,
Super
yes.
excited.
And I decided to cover it despite the massive coverage of it already, because where else can you get the perspective of a judge and investigators in a case full of botched judicial proceedings and investigations?
No. Okay.
And hear from actual people who've done the jobs,
Is the
right?
case adjudicated? Is it done?
Oh, yeah, it's
and
completely
over
done.
with?
It's
Okay.
completely
All right.
done. You can say whatever you want now.
Had to
It's
make sure.
completely not coming back. So, yeah, Crime Curious. That's where, people. That's where you get this. So there's a lot to unpack here. So let me jump right in. On the evening of September 28th, 2000, in a quiet subdivision in Georgetown, Indiana, 3 lives ended inside a family garage. 35-year-old Kimberly Camm and her children, 7-year-old Bradley and 5-year-old Jill, were shot to death inside what was supposed to be the safest place they knew, their home. Within hours, their names would be spoken in public briefings. And within days, their husband and father would be charged with murder. And for 13 years, the focus of the case would be less about how Kim, Bradley, and Jill died and more about who could be blamed. This is the story of the Camm family murders. It's a story about lost lives, missed evidence, and how justice for victims can be delayed when assumptions take over an investigation. Let's get into how Kim and David met, shall we? Kimberly Wren met David Camm in Indiana in the late 1980s. They married in 1989 and built a life in Georgetown, Indiana, a small, close-knit suburb that's a little bit from Louisville, Kentucky, okay, because they're kind of like on the borders. Not to be confused with Georgetown, Kentucky, which is just outside of Lexington, Kentucky, okay? Because at first when I was researching this, I was like, Georgetown? Is this a Kentucky case or an Indiana case? It's Indiana.
I went right to Washington, D.C.
So did I.
Did you?
To Georgetown.
Yep.
Yeah.
Nope. This is Indiana. Now, Kim was known as a devoted mother. Bradley and Jill were active children. Bradley attended swim practice. Jill, at just 5 years old, often followed anything that her older brother did. David Camm worked for about a decade as an Indiana state trooper before retiring in 2000, which is when this case took place, remember. From the outside, a family appeared stable and ordinary, a suburban household bound by schedules, school activities, and family routines. But on the night of September 28th, everything changed. That evening, David Camm said he left the family home around 7 p.m. to play basketball at a local church, an activity that he did regularly. Kim took Brad to swim practice and then returned home with both children. Sometime after 7:30 p.m., Kim, Brad, and Jill were killed. When David returned home around 9:30 p.m., the garage light revealed a horror. Kim lay on the concrete floor, dressed only in her underwear. She had a gunshot wound to the head. Her shoes and socks had been removed and carefully placed on the roof of the family vehicle. Inside the family's Ford Bronco, Jill remained buckled in the back seat, shot in the head. Bradley was slumped over the back seat, shot in the chest, his body positioned in a way suggesting he may have been trying to escape. David Camm stated that he thought his son, who had no head injuries, might still be alive. Remember, he is a former state trooper, okay? So he's going to be quickly assessing these things. Yep. So he entered the passenger front of the Bronco. He went through the 2 front bucket seats and grabbed his son, taking him out, putting him on the garage floor and giving him CPR. In the process, Camm had placed his left knee in the middle of the back seat, causing Jill's head and body to slump forward and to the left, contacting David Camm's T-shirt.
People are not going to love that he disturbed the crime scene.
No, and that's what screws everything up.
I know.
Yes. When investigators arrived, Bradley Camm was found lying on the garage floor, and a later autopsy found that he had been shot through his torso, severing his spine. Instead of calling 911, David called his former Indiana State Police post, explaining later that he reached out to people he trusted in shock. He said, quote, "My thought process first was, these are my people. I needed help." Yeah, but that's a problem for David.
It is. It is a problem.
Within hours, detectives focused on David Camm. They noted small blood stains on his T-shirt, the disturbed crime scene, his decision not to call 911. I'm going to enter Rob Stites, a crime scene photographer who was believed by police to be a blood spatter analyst.
I was just going to say, is this contact blood or is this spatter?
Well, just hang on to the words, who was believed by the police to be a blood spatter analyst.
Okay.
Rob told police there was a cleanup at the crime scene and high-velocity impact spatter on the T-shirt that David Camm was wearing. A crime scene photographer identified 8 tiny blood stains on David's shirt and labeled them, quote, high-velocity impact spatter.
Can I throw a wrench in this immediately?
Sure.
If he's a trooper or was a former law enforcement officer and he had engaged in some type of high-powered, high-velocity shot, he would have changed his shirt or tried to dispose of it.
Well, one would think. And 8 tiny blood stains is all you get from a high-velocity impact spatter? Like, 8? That's it?
Hold on. Potentially.
Yeah.
It depends on how far back you are when this happens.
They were saying that it was close up. This is a very small garage that all this is happening. Yep.
Okay.
So the high-velocity impact spatter is suggesting that he was near the gun when it was fired. This interpretation became the foundation of the case. Despite the analyst having no formal certification in blood stain analysis, I want to say that again, the expert had not taken one blood stain certification class. He had embellished his credentials to the force. So I'm just going to let that hang right there.
Well, how did that get in for testimony then?
Don't worry.
That's bad
We'll get to it. Y'all, we have 3 trials to go through. Okay?
Okay.
3. So just hang on for this ride. Another piece of seemingly incriminating evidence was a phone bill indicating that David Camm had made a phone call from the residence at 7:19 p.m. on the evening of the murder. He claimed to be playing basketball at the church from 7 to approximately 9:30 that evening. So rather than continuing a search for an outside perpetrator, investigators shaped their case around the assumption that the husband did it. As the investigation continued, the police uncovered several affairs that David Camm had during his marriage to Kim. And so the prosecution took the statements from nearly a dozen women that either admitted to having an affair directly with David or made statements that they were propositioned by David as evidence that he must have wanted his wife and kids out of the picture.
Not necessarily.
Right. The motive, they claim, was that he wanted them gone. They were operating under the assumption that the time of death would have been close to the time David called his own old police post for help, 9:30. So a probable cause affidavit was done. He was arrested and charged with the murder of his family within days. But before long, the erroneous nature of several pieces of evidence was revealed. While the infidelity accusations were credible, it was discovered that most of the rest of the evidence on the probable cause affidavit was either inaccurate or unreliable. Based on the autopsies and other evidence, the time of death was determined to be around 8 p.m., far earlier than the original estimate of 9:30, giving David Camm an alibi. Because remember, he was playing basketball. Then that phone call that seemed to prove David Camm was lying about his alibi was disproven because the phone company discovered that there was an inaccuracy that stemmed from the confusion regarding Indiana's different time zones.
Oh.
The call was actually made an hour earlier at 6:19 p.m.
Okay.
And the cleanup at the crime scene and the blood spatter on David's shirt were also questioned. It was discovered that there was not, in fact, a crime scene cleanup, but the usual separation of blood when exposed to air for a while. Several other areas that Rob Stites had claimed to be high-velocity impact spatter found at the crime scene were inaccurate interpretations, calling into question his abilities. Investigators stated that they investigated the foreign DNA on a sweatshirt that was found at the crime scene. And prosecutors stated there were no matches when that DNA was run through CODIS. Don't worry, I will be breaking all of this down further. So, the discovery that the time of the murder was over an hour earlier than previously thought meant that Camm now had a solid alibi. 11 witnesses who were playing basketball with him at that church told police he was with them playing basketball the whole time, from 7 p.m. until little after 9 p.m. The police and prosecution changed their theory of the crime from a murder following the basketball game to one in which he snuck out of the basketball game, committed the murders, and then slipped back in without being noticed.
Yeah, I was like, nobody would have noticed this.
They would have noticed the uneven number of people.
Yeah.
One would think.
How are you guys
Prosecutors
scoring so many points?
argued that they suggested that he sat out one whole basketball game, ran home, committed the murders, and then returned to the church without anyone noticing that he wasn't on the bench. Despite
Wearing a shirt with blood splatter on it, or did he change and then come back and put the original shirt back on to feign? I don't.
11 basketball players that David Camm had played with that night told police they had not seen him leave the gym, had not seen any blood spatter on his shirt, and hadn't noticed any odd behavior. But the state then gets even more cruel.
Murder for hire.
No.
Oh. I figure they can go to that too, because you're always going to have the spouse as the POI,
Sure.
and then they're going to go to, okay, well, if you have an alibi, let's see if, and you're having all of these affairs, did you do a murder for hire on it?
The medical examiner had simply said that Jill, 5-year-old Jill, had experienced blunt force trauma to the genitals sometime within the 24 hours leading up to her death, but failed to prove that David Camm had caused it. But even suggesting a thing demonizes a person to a jury now, doesn't it?
It does, because you have an allegation of criminal sexual conduct.
Yes. So there is no evidence to support this, but they bring it in as part of the motive that he's trying to cover this up. But now that they have to change, we'll get there.
I'm just like, okay, because I'm like, but how? Like, it has to make it in
I
past
told
some
you.
evidentiary proof.
Oh, honey.
You're also
I
supposed
told
to
you
check
this
someone's
is-
credentials when you hire him as a crime scene investigator.
And if they don't, it comes out on the stand, and that's not just the judge or the prosecutor's fault. The defense attorney also should be voir direing that witness to see if they do, in fact, have expert qualifications.
Megan's not going to like this case.
No, she doesn't already.
Uh-huh. So the case, and I mean, there's a lot out there about this, you guys. So I'm sorry if I'm kind of rushing through this to get it down into like a 1-hour episode here. But like I said, there's 3 court cases to go through. The case goes to trial for the first time in the spring of 2002, with the blood spatter as the main forensic evidence and the affairs listed as the motive. The prosecution argued that the blood stains on David Camm's shirt were the result of the high-velocity impact spatter, proving that he was the shooter. Defense hired experts to assert that the pattern was caused by transfer when his shirt had made contact with Jill's hair as he was removing Bradley from the vehicle. During the trials, Bart Epstein, a blood stain analyst for the defense, along with another analyst, demonstrated how the blood stains could have gotten on the shirt by running T-shirts over wigs containing blood.
Right. That's what I meant, the difference between transfer and spatter.
Similar patterns to the one on David Camm's shirt were produced. But
Great.
nevertheless, you guys, he was convicted. In August 2004, so 2 years after his conviction, the Indiana Court of Appeals overturned the conviction, citing the trial judge's decision to allow testimony from a dozen women who claimed that they had had affairs with David Camm or had been propositioned by him, unfairly biased the jury because the prosecutor did not adequately connect those relationships with the murders.
Correct. Because
Yes.
you do see those things adequately and accurately come up in cases, but they have to go to motive.
Right.
Like, had he been making plans? Are there messages? Is there anything else indicating he was making some plan to get out of this marriage in some way, shape, or form? And it doesn't sound like it. It
No.
sounds like he had a good time.
He just-
for a
right.
while and had his cake and ate it too.
Exactly. He was a shitty husband fidelity-wise, but that doesn't, and we
Doesn't
say
mean he
this
murdered
so
her.
much, that doesn't mean that you want your spouse dead. And
Absolutely
your
not.
children.
And your
this
children.
is familial side, you
It
guys.
is. That's the harder one to recognize.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of stuff going on in the news right now about husbands or wives that have tried to kill their spouses, but most of the ones we've seen recently, it's not as common to have familial side as a piece.
Yes. So, in November 2004, that was August. So, his conviction was overturned in August 2004. In November 2004, prosecutor Keith Henderson refiled charges against David Camm. There's a piece of evidence that I haven't explored with you yet that I'd like to now. Unseen in the darkened garage and not collected by evidence technicians at first was a gray sweatshirt bearing the name Backbone in the collar.
Backbone?
Backbone. We'll get to it.
Okay.
An Indiana State police lab analyst later found unidentified female DNA on the front of the shirt, and a private lab hired by David Camm's defense attorney, Mike McDaniel, found unidentified male DNA in the collar. The blood and DNA of Kim Camm had also been discovered on the same sweatshirt. And this did not, remember
Okay.
the first trial, they were saying, we ran, the prosecution was like, we ran it, nothing popped up. Like, there's nothing. Okay, and it was left at that.
Okay.
So in early 2005, the defense requested the DNA from two unidentified individuals found on the sweatshirt recovered at the crime scene be submitted to the CODIS database once again. So they're like, fine, okay, I hear what the prosecution is saying,
Right.
but we want this ran again. According
Yeah.
to David Camm's defense attorneys, prosecutors initially refused to do so, refused to run the DNA again, and only complied after a judge issued a court order that they do so.
That's not uncommon.
Nope. When the DNA was finally entered, a match was found for a male profile.
That wasn't David?
That wasn't David, but hold on. It was then also discovered that this DNA sample had never been run before during the first trial, despite the prosecutor's prior statements that this evidence had already been analyzed and had produced no results.
Now you have prosecutorial misconduct.
Oh, yes, we do. Oh, and we will get to that.
Okay.
The DNA is hurting your heart. It does. I know. It hurts your prosecutor heart. I know it does. But this is why.
It hurts a justice heart.
It does.
It hurts a justice heart.
Just like anything else, there are some people who are bad at their job.
As a former prosecutor, you never want a wrongful conviction. You never want to take a case to trial where there's alternative hypotheses. You just don't. Not if you're a good human.
Yeah, he's not.
Okay.
So
okay, great.
this is why I felt
Those are purely
compelled to
Charnell's
cover this.
opinions, me having no knowledge of this attorney.
Yeah, don't worry. We get to it.
Great.
You know I'm not quick to judge people. I have to have real reason to feel like they're not a good person.
You guys, I'm letting the general audience know these two far more judgy than me. Given the situation.
Sure. Oh, shoot. The DNA was identified as belonging to Charles Boney or Booney. It's Boney. Would you say that's Boney? Because I just want to call it Boney.
Yeah,
It's
I want to say
Boney.
it's Bonnie,
Yeah,
but it's
not
probably
Maybe
Bonnie.
Bonnie.
It's not Bonnie.
It's Boney.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It's the English language. That's a long O if it's followed by an
so
EY.
his first name is Charles. So
Oh.
so he's Dick Boney?
Or money, like Bunny. Dick Bunny.
Charles? No, that'd be
He's Dick-
Richard.
Oh, fine.
He's Chuck Boney.
Well, or
Chuck Bunny.
Richard. Another name for Richard is Dick.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
but you said it's Charles.
Charles Boney. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
it's
you
not
were saying Richard. They call people Dick. I don't know. I feel like
Yeah.
haven't we covered some Charles that are called?
No.
Chuck.
I don't know.
Charles can be
Charles.
Charlie's and Chuck's.
Yeah, not Dick.
Chuck Bunny.
He's got Dick on your mind.
He's still a dick, just so you know. Just
he
so you
might
know.
be a
he
dick.
is a dick. Anyway, he's a convicted felon from nearby New Albany.
Okay.
The sweatshirt itself.
Hey, not all convicted felons are dicks.
Oh no.
Some nice ones. They're very polite.
But
not all of them.
when I
There's
tell
random
you,
few.
when I tell you why he's a convicted felon, you're gonna be like, oh yeah, he's a dick.
Is he a sex offender?
The sweatshirt itself was determined to belong to him. Do you want to know why? Because remember how I said the name Backbone was found on it?
Oh, Boney.
Well, don't you know? Right. And don't you know?
Oh.
That's his prison name. That's just his prison nickname.
Okay, thank you, Charnell. It's clearly Boney. It's clearly Charles Boney.
Backbone. Charles Boney. Yeah.
I don't know why they call him that.
I don't.
Well,
I
don't
think we can guess.
It ain't,
can.
it ain't front bone.
It's not.
Yeah,
it's
it might be.
Backbone. At the time of the murders.
That's what all the kids at the local schools call him.
Front bone?
Backbone.
Backbone?
At the time of the murders, Charles Boney was free on parole after serving time for a series of armed assaults on women,
Okay.
several of which involved the theft of women's shoes. His most recent offense before the Camm family murders involved the armed robbery and attempted abduction of 3 women at gunpoint.
For their shoes?
No, he's a sex offender. In some of Boney's earlier cases, there was evidence suggesting the victims had been stalked. Several women reported receiving harassing phone calls for weeks or months before their attacks, during which the caller asked what they were wearing and whether they had on high heel shoes.
I was just going to say, so didn't you say he has a fetish, though,
He
about
does.
these shoes? And did you
He has a foot
mention the
fetish.
shoes in this murder?
I
you
sure
mentioned
did.
the socks on top of the car.
Neatly placed and the shoes neatly placed on
Next
top
to
of the
it.
car.
Okay.
Charles Boney
Wow,
had
this is really adding up to some pretty good probable cause. At
Right?
the very least, reasonable suspicion for an investigation.
Oh, hold on. Charles Boney had previously told police that he had a foot fetish, a fact he later openly discussed in media interviews.
Charnell can't see Jason and I right
I
now,
cannot.
but neither one of us, as we're smiling, have a problem with this particular fetish. We're
No.
just
It's just, I mean, and the thing,
I-
the crimes he committed are awful, so
Right.
please don't take my smirk as a sign of approval.
no.
I just think it's funny that he stole their shoes.
Well, he
We've had
assaulted
major
them.
serial killers.
He
who've done this.
assaulted them, their feet. He assaulted these women. That's why he was out on parole or whatever. He was sexually assaulting women for their feet, not just taking their shoes. The stalking was asking them what shoes they had. Yeah, it's not okay.
You've
it's
never
not
known
okay.
anybody
really-
with
And
a
he
shoe
did-
fetish or a foot
I
fetish
mean, not
before,
to the point
Jason?
where it was like a serial crime.
And
Okay.
he did hold them at gunpoint,
Right.
by the way.
So he could touch their feet.
Among other things. I think
Yeah.
he
I
touched
need
other
more
things.
details.
Oh yeah.
I would need
First
more
of all,
details.
Kim Camm was found in only her underwear.
Right.
And there was blunt force trauma to Jill's genitals. Okay. Spoiler
spy?
alert. Frickin' Charles Boney did it.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. But anyway,
Spoiler alert. I
Yeah.
think we figured this out.
I thought probably too. There's still plenty who don't believe it though. So let's
Great.
carry on. Boney was questioned by investigators and underwent a polygraph examination, which indicated deception. He denied any involvement with the murders, claiming that he had donated the sweatshirt to charity and was cleared as a suspect.
And a former law enforcement officer is going to go to charity and get us, or go to Salvation Army and get a sweatshirt that
This
says,
says backbone in it, in the
Is
collar.
it more probable that they'd had some type of law enforcement contact in the past and he knew that he was a former police officer?
We will get to all of this. It's not
Okay.
exactly what you think. Actually, it's
Okay.
worse.
It's worse.
It's worse. Whatever you're thinking right now, don't, because it's worse. So he's actually, as he denies his involvement, claimed he donated the stuff, and he's given this polygraph, and deception was there. At first, he was cleared as a suspect. However, 2 weeks later, investigators discovered his palm print on Kim Camm's vehicle, and at that point, an affidavit is submitted for probable cause, and he's arrested. Charles Boney is arrested. The second DNA profile found on the sweatshirt was later identified as belonging to Mayla Mattingly, Boney's girlfriend at the time.
Weird. Mm-hmm. What a coincidence.
So,
How long ago had he donated that sweatshirt?
yeah, it didn't say. I mean, I'm sure we could find it
His
somewhere,
girlfriend
but I
missed him
didn't make
so
note
much.
of it.
She went to the Salvation Army where he donated it, rubbed herself all up on that sweatshirt, and then left it there.
And then left it. Mm-hmm.
Hey, I'm trying to come up with a plausible
mean,
explanation.
Weirder things have happened.
Not
Well,
really.
After her DNA was identified, she was interviewed regarding her knowledge of the crime. She told police that Charles Boney returned home after midnight on the night of the murders. He was breathing really hard and somewhat excited. She said that he showed her a gun, had a bloody scraped knee, and was sweating profusely. The next morning, she said that Charles Boney asked her and his mother to watch news coverage regarding the murders. She testified later that she had left the room to shower when he and his mother began arguing. I think his mama knows he's not such a good, she didn't raise a little precious prince here.
No. I think once your son goes to prison, you know that.
Mm-hmm. Charles Boney's blood was also found mixed in with Bradley and Kim Camm's blood on the sweatshirt at the crime scene. So after he's arrested, this one's going to hurt. It was revealed that Stan Faith, the prosecutor who handled David Camm's first trial, was also Charles Boney's attorney. During questioning, Charles Boney requested that Stan Faith represent him, but was informed this would be a conflict of interest.
So had he previously been a defense attorney and then later became a prosecutor? If he had represented Boney?
I believe so.
Or do we mean that prosecutor had prosecuted Boney once before?
No, he was his attorney.
Okay.
Yes.
This happens,
Yes. Yeah.
especially in smaller towns. He probably was defense counsel or a private attorney or indigent defense at some point, and then he either got elected or hired to the DA's office.
Well, Charles Boney later admits that he had discussed the case with Stan Faith before he became a suspect. When questioned about his office's failure to identify Charles Boney earlier, Stan Faith denied any intentional misconduct, stating, "I regret it. I deeply regret it. But the myth that's growing out of all of this is false." Something I haven't told you that's also in the sweatshirt, besides his prison nickname of Backbone, was also his prison number.
Oh.
Okay? So, how were we not connecting this earlier?
No, he connected it.
But he
And why
deeply
wouldn't
regrets it. There's a myth growing out there that
It's not a myth.
Yeah.
I guess my concern is, did law enforcement have any awareness of this, the investigating officers, and present this to the prosecutor? The prosecutor obviously was reviewing evidence at some point. I need to know that kind of relationship intersection.
we'll get to it later after
Okay,
it
we're
all.
still
After
getting to-
13 years happens, honey, we'll get to it. Because remember, things happen behind closed doors, and then it's not until other things are revealed that those skeletons come out.
Okay.
So now for the second trial. The prosecutors have to come up with a third theory of crime, right? So Charles, because remember, the first time it was, hey, he murdered his family when he got home from playing basketball.
Right.
Then it was, oh, no, he sat out one game. No one noticed he left. He murdered his family and came back.
Right.
So now, we've got to insert Charles Boney somehow. So we have to have come up with a third theory.
Murder for hire.
So, they don't even go there. No.
Co-defendant.
Yes.
Collaborators.
Charles Boney offered several inconsistent accounts of the events before eventually settling on a version in which he claimed he was drawn to David Camm's home under the pretense of selling a firearm to David Camm. Now, remember, he's a former Indiana State trooper. But
Buying a
he's
firearm
going to
from a convicted felon that can't legally own a firearm?
Correct.
This is beautiful.
Okay. In this account, Charles Boney acknowledged placing Kim Camm's shoes on top of the vehicle, but insisted the act was coincidental and unrelated to his admitted foot fetish. Charles Boney
Do you
stated...
know how many times I've had a guy wander up to my garage and be like, "Megan, can I just hold your shoes and socks for a minute, and I'm going to have you watch me fold them and put them on you?"
Yeah.
Can you imagine my reaction
No.
if someone did that?
Imagine having a foot fetish and then it just being a coincidence that these
I
shoes...
am not kink shaming.
The
I don't care
perpetrators
about your
or the victim's
fetishes.
shoes just end up there, right? Like, come on. All right, so Charles Boney claimed that moments later, Kim Camm arrived in the family's Bronco, with David following the vehicle into the garage. Charles Boney said that he heard 3 gunshots. He alleged that David turned the gun on him and told him, "You did this," attempting to shoot him. But Charles Boney asserted that the weapon either malfunctioned or ran out of ammunition because he didn't get shot. He claimed that while David was holding a non-functioning gun, he chased him back towards the garage. Charles stated that David ran into the house while Boney tripped over and fell over Kim's shoes, which were already off her feet and lying on the garage floor. So while he's being chased by a man with a non-functioning gun, he trips over these shoes that were already not on Kim. And he neatly placed them on top of the vehicle and then folded the socks too.
That's the dumbest shit I ever heard.
I have anxiety.
You should. We all should. Is everybody else sweating too? Yep.
What was he offered in terms of a plea agreement to testify to this?
God, it gets so bad.
Was he? I have to know. Was he offered immunity? Was he offered a plea deal? What was he offered to testify to this? Who helped him come up with this story?
Your prosecutor that you want to defend so bad.
I don't want to defend the prosecutor. I'm just saying.
Yes.
I'm asking all these questions.
Yes,
now.
Mr. Faith. They met.
Corruption in these cases gives the entire criminal justice process a bad name. Mm-hmm. I have no problem speaking out on these cases, and I don't think any good jurist has a problem either, because we're under enough fire in general from people who just don't trust the government at all and think that I'm out there to be corrupt and to just make their lives miserable. And you guys know me. That's not what...
Or that don't understand the law.
My intention is.
You know what I mean? And want you to sentence somebody longer than what the statute actually allows you to.
Right.
Just so
they
simply
just
don't
have
understand.
Right.
Yeah.
But this case is literally, my feet are going. I'm shaking. I have legit physical manifestation of anxiety in this case.
Yeah. It is horrible. And imagine being David Camm.
No, I can't.
While all of this is happening.
I can't imagine that. His family's dead.
Exactly. This man has lost his children and his wife. Yep. Charles Boney said that after falling, he picked up the shoes, he placed them on top of the Bronco, and then he leaned against the vehicle to look inside where Brad and Jill were seated, deceased. He stated that this contact explained why his palm print was found on the vehicle. Now,
did we know about that before in the first trial? The palm print?
No, because a guy from Home Depot was checking the scene and didn't dust for prints.
The guy from Home Depot.
Right.
I will have you know it was an ace.
It's important. It's important to remember what I said. Boney stated that he arrived at David Camm's residence at approximately 7 p.m. However, and this is we're in the second trial, but however, testimony from other prosecution witnesses placed Kim, Bradley, and Jill alive at the pool until approximately 7:15. So Charles Boney's assertion that the shooting occurred shortly after 7 conflicted not only with that testimony, but also with the prosecution's own timeline, which was consistent with the medical examiner's estimate of an approximate 8 p.m. time of death. Okay, that all happens in this second trial. And aside from Boney's statements, there's no additional evidence to ever link Charles Boney and David Camm together. So but it doesn't matter. They're charged as co-conspirators, and Boney was tried first. He was convicted, and he was sentenced to 225 years in prison.
Wow.
So when you're sitting here going, did he get some sort of plea deal? What is going on? He's sentenced to 225 years. Then David Camm's second trial begins January 17th, 2006, with the extramarital affairs now inadmissible, okay?
Right.
Because of this is the whole reason we're having a retrial, guys, is because the higher courts overturned the conviction because his extramarital affairs did not link to the murderers.
Right. But Boney went to prison for 200 years. What incentive does he have to bring somebody else down with him?
I think that Boney is a boner. I think that he's just
Stallone.
Yeah, he's not perhaps the sharpest bone in the pile of bones here. I'm not sure. We'll get there. He is a bonehead. But there's more
Very
about
specific bone you just held up, Jason.
I think that he was very, very much coerced into all of this.
Or incentivized. I'm not even saying coerced, because somebody who commits those type of murders, I'm not going to say this is a good person who's even capable of necessarily being coerced. I'm sure there's potential, but what incentives did he have here?
Perhaps
Was he offered some things?
Does
in prison?
Indiana have the death penalty? Does he think that if he also wraps David Camm into this with him, then
did he just want to take a former cop out with him?
Sure.
No, somebody planted the seed in his head.
Yeah, we'll get to that. We'll get to
Like
the scene.
I'm sure they did, but he
somebody
still
said-
copped a plea. He was still going down to a life offense.
Yeah.
Going down for a life
Right.
offense, irrespective. So I'm waiting for you to. I'm sure get there to
Well,
tie this up.
Some
We'll
people
keep-
just want to watch the world burn, Megan.
That's true.
That's
That's very true.
I know those people. Mm-hmm. I've met them.
So
Give me my matches.
with the with the extramarital affairs now not allowed to come in, new Floyd County prosecutor, his name is Keith Henderson. So Mr. Faith.
Do we like Keith?
Mr. Faith is out. A fun fact that I found, Keith Henderson was a Republican who had defeated Democrat Stan Faith in the latter's bid for re-election.
Well, I wonder if some of how Mr. Faith handled the case had to do with that. So
Oh, yes.
Sometimes a change in your government officials is what you really need to make things happen.
And before anybody says anything, there's corruption on both sides.
Oh,
Like-
great. You're going to give me more corruption.
No, I'm just saying between, yes, there is more corruption. But
Okay.
also, it doesn't matter that they're a Republican or Democrat, you guys.
No, it happens on both ends of the aisle.
sides. Yes. So, you want to know what their new argument is? You're going to hate it. You're going to hate it.
Hey, self-defense.
No. That David Camm had been molesting his daughter and killed his wife and children to cover up the crime. The evidence that they had was the single blunt force trauma injury to Jill's genitals.
That could have been caused by the convicted felon who also molested
And
women
was.
and had a fetish
Yes.
and
And
left her in
spoiler
her
alert,
panties
it
and-
was. Because a medical examiner testified for the defense, disagreeing about the state's theory that
Yeah.
that this was the result of sexual abuse because
Why is the prosecution still gung-ho on
because they are like the prince looking for Cinderella to make the shoe fit. I feel like David Camm is one of the stepsisters that really, like
They don't want to admit they were wrong.
no, exactly.
But
They
why?
want to make this fit
This
so
is
bad
hard for me ethically.
because they don't want to admit they were freaking wrong.
But you're supposed to, but you do. Do you know how often I admit that I am wrong? Do you know what we're trained to do is if we make a mistake or if we don't know the answer, we go look it up. Part of the problem is societal, that they would expect that those people in those positions of power, the people that you elect, are just going to know the right answers.
Right.
Give people some grace here so
Remember-
that people are willing, elected officials are willing to say, shit, I got that wrong.
You guys, this is the early 2000s, so we're not there. As
No.
a
No,
society,
it's true.
we are not there. The medical examiner argued, saying that Jill's hymen was intact, and it was just one of many blunt force trauma injuries that she sustained by being struck during the fatal attack. It wasn't just that she was shot in the head. She had other blunt force trauma injuries as well.
So by blunt force trauma, you're meaning that there's potentially evidence of under skin bruising, possibly manifesting in actual bruising. One of those we know happened around her genital
on the
area,
top of her genitals.
Correct.
Yep.
Which is still a CSC, even
Yeah,
touching the outside of it. But she's showing signs of contusions or bruises elsewhere.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So how can we determine this was actually a sexual assault, or is
Well,
that what that?
This is what
that sounds like he beat the crap out of her and she happened to get hit in the genital.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's
Correct.
how I'm interpreting
Or there
Yes.
was an attempted sexual assault that caused trauma to her exterior genital area, but there was never a penetration that occurred.
Right. But remember, we've got this second trial for David, so now this is what the prosecutors are saying.
So we're going with
He's-
long-term molestation now.
Yes, he's
Okay.
sexually abused her and he's trying to cover it up. That's his motive now, okay? It's no longer just that he was having all these affairs and he wanted his wife out of the picture, his wife and kids out of the picture. Now it's that he was sexually abusing her,
Right.
his daughter, and his wife found out about it, and so he's got to kill her and cover up and the children.
And he's going to choose the time to do that when he's invited the felon over to sell him the gun.
Right.
Because that's good timing.
Yep.
I just want to make sure that's where we are.
Yep.
In
Yes.
the timeline.
The prosecution presented Charles Boney's story that David Camm was the shooter, but Charles Boney was there to sell David Camm a gun. David Camm was convicted a second time on March 3rd, 2006, and was sentenced to life without parole. He, of course, appealed the conviction, citing the prejudice nature of the
Prejudicial nature.
Yeah, what did I type
Of
that wrong?
The
Molestation allegations and the lack of evidence linking the injuries to him.
correct.
So the Indiana State Supreme Court granted a second reversal of his conviction.
This is when you've been overturned twice, sweet little town where all of you are from. You might want to realize that you need to do some additional research, or at least admit when you're wrong or when you don't have enough to continue. You're having a hard time coming up at this point with viable options
Sure
for a motive.
Right. Their reversal, I'm just going to give you one quote from it.
Okay.
It stated that what was missing from this record is any competent evidence of the premise that the defendant molested the child.
Okay.
That is huge.
But all I'm taking from this, and I want this on a T-shirt, and it's just to say what is missing from this case is evidence.
Is evidence.
Just evidence.
So now we're going to go to a third trial.
Is anybody else heart beating really fast?
Well, it's just like Jason said earlier, and this is what the problem that most people have that are professionals in the world, and I mean, you don't have to be professionals, but have any sort of insight into this, is the way that instead of following the evidence, they're trying to make things fit, like Cinderella's shoe, right? Like the stepsisters wanted to fit into Cinderella's tiny little shoe. That's what they're trying to do. They're not doing their job.
I just know some brilliant prosecutors who put cases together so amazingly that you would never have to do that. And I'm thinking of in our neighboring county, my one good friend who will be on here eventually. It's like when I retire, I think somebody hire me to do trial strategy for you.
Yeah.
Okay, because this is not okay. What's
Was
happening
this-
here?
Right.
Were these murders actually investigated?
Yes.
Or did they just say he did it, then they just went around looking for evidence
And
later?
that is the
Correct,
worst type
Jason.
of bias.
Like that's
Yes,
Investigation bias. It's
like,
the
I don't,
worst.
I don't
You're the
think there
winner.
was any investigation.
you're the
There
winner.
was no
That's the
investigation.
long-term
Absolutely
holding
it.
from these cases is investigation bias
Yes.
and
They're just-
prosecutorial bias.
They had, like I said, they had the freaking night shift guy from Walmart doing the freaking crime scene,
Yep.
and then there was no investigation. They're like, must have been the dad, and that was it.
That was it.
And now they're just like trying to piece together
Because-
puzzle.
because
they're trying to
he's-
shove those pieces of puzzle that don't actually
That don't fit. All because
Can you
he's had
imagine?
affairs. Okay, so he's not into fidelity,
Yeah.
right? Like he's a shitty husband that way, but that's a huge leap to fucking murder.
Right. Big
A
leap
big
to murdering
leap.
your family
Right.
into 2 children.
and 2 children. Right.
So during the third trial,
And molesting your
and,
daughter.
I mean, and that one I think to me is what disturbs me the most. The way that you were trying to smear this man even more.
Yeah.
But it's bad enough you were making him a murderer because
Right.
he was having affairs, but now you're also trying to make him a child molester.
Yeah.
That is horrific.
It is horrific.
Which
It is
there's
a
no
jump.
and there's no evidence
No.
to suggest that at all.
I believe they
Said no competent
They just
evidence.
no
Nope.
right. They just pulled that out of their ass. They're
They
like,
sure
let's
did.
call him a child molester.
All
see
because
what
of a
happens."
bruise amongst many.
Do you
on
know
her
what
body.
happens when you get to call someone a child molester? They get convicted.
They do.
Juries can't separate that.
No.
And anybody who argues they can, look up the jury stats and the percentage of people who get convictions once you're able to use that terminology of molestation, right? We have to be very careful what evidence we let in.
Yes. So
And if there were even motions filed to exclude that evidence, and it sounds like the defense did want it excluded, but it was allowed to come in.
exactly. During the third trial, prosecutors argued now that the motive for the murders was life insurance.
Oh, good God.
Because Kim Camm had some life insurance, and from her 401k, he stood to inherit $650,000. Okay?
Wow.
So now we're going with the life insurance,
How
stick
much
here.
insurance did he have on the kids?
He had none to my knowledge. It was only
Okay.
on Kim.
Well, that was just poorly planned.
And also on himself,
He was
by the
retired.
way.
He didn't think his pension was enough, apparently.
They both had recently taken out life insurance policies on one another.
because that's normal.
Right. They're encroaching on 40, right? Like she was like 35,
I even
something
have
like that.
small policies on my kids,
Yes, me
right?
too.
Like that's a normal thing.
Me too. For the first time, Charles Boney testified. That was funny, you guys.
I
don't
like
know.
when she makes new words up.
I know. Testified against David Camm, accusing him of drawing Charles Boney to the house and then killing his own family before attempting to shoot him as well. So, because this is the third trial.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
now
he's
Charles is innocent?
No.
Is that what I just missed?
Yes. He was trying to say he was innocent in his trial, but didn't work. He got 225 years.
Right.
So now, but he didn't testify against David. Remember, they were co-conspirators, so he had his own trial.
Right.
Now, David's third trial, he's actually testifying against him. And the trial also introduced DNA evidence that had not been presented in the first two proceedings.
How?
Okay.
How do you have new DNA evidence that was never presented before? Did CODIS get better during this time?
Well, now
Did they
look at how
unfindable?
many years have passed. We are now, let's see, when is his third trial? When does his third trial take place? I get to it. Can't remember. There's so many dates on here, but he's convicted March 3rd, 2006. So that's 6 years later. Then it's overturned. That takes a couple of years. So
It does.
I cannot remember the exact date. It was 2013. He's not retried again for a third time till 2013. Okay, so Dr. Richard, Ekeline Boom. Ekeline Boom. Oh, guys, it's hard.
Boom, boom down.
Ekeline Boom. He testified.
Did you
Why
say
do I keep
informer at
saying
me?
it?
Yeah.
Wow.
What'd you say?
He was just rapping informer at me.
Oh, yes.
You're too
Who
young for
sings that? Snow.
Yes.
Got it.
I know that song. Oh my God! Don't tell me what I know. No, you don't. Testified.
It's okay, Grandpa. We'll sing our music over here by ourselves.
Can we? We're just gonna call him Dr. Richard
Sure, I like that.
because
Don't.
Ekeline Boom is
Don't.
too much.
Don't.
Nope, it's not Dr. Dick. He testified that he identified touch DNA consistent with Charles Boney in multiple locations on the clothing of both Kim and Jill Camm. Charles Boney's DNA was found on Kim Camm's underwear, on the sleeve of his shirt, or her shirt, above an abrasion believed to have resulted from a physical struggle, on a fingernail that had broken off during the attack, and on the stomach area of Jill Camm's shirt. This DNA evidence appeared to directly contradict Charles Boney's repeated claims that he had never had physical contact with the victims.
The prosecution knew that this was going to come out. This is never a surprise. There was never a moment in that trial where the defense came up with that and the prosecution went, oh my God. That's not how it works. Not TV. There's discovery. And so again, I'm just a little shocked and appalled that it got that far in the third trial then when they realized there was going to be testimony regarding touch DNA and that it showed that. Unless they have some type of an expert witness, a prosecutorial witness that was going to disagree and discredit the defense expert.
Yeah. No.
No?
No.
Jesus.
No. Defense co-counsel Stacy Uliana. Why do they have such weird
We all do.
Stacy argued that if the DNA showed Charles Boney had physically attacked the family, it made it unlikely that David Camm was the shooter, right? As this new DNA evidence increasingly suggested a more direct role for Charles, the prosecution presented a different theory late in the third trial.
Is this theory 4?
This is now going to be theory 4.
Okay.
Judge Jonathan Dart, D-A-R-T-T,
Okay.
made a controversial decision allowing jury instructions that permitted jurors to convict David Camm if they believed that he had aided and abetted Charles Boney, even if they did not believe David Camm was the shooter. The instruction applied.
That's not an uncanny jury instruction.
I know, but they're just saying it's controversial since this is his third trial, right? Excuse me. Charles Boney
Did the defense object to that jury instruction? Like, no, we don't want that jury instruction
Yeah.
read, because the
Yes.
prosecution has to have presented enough evidence for that jury instruction to be necessary.
They strongly objected. I get to it in a second.
Okay.
This instruction applied if jurors believed David Camm participated in the murders in some way. The defense strongly objected, arguing that there was no evidence that David Camm had ever met Charles Boney and that the instruction violated protections against double jeopardy, since Camm had already been acquitted of conspiracy charges during the second trial.
Oh, okay.
Defense attorneys,
Well-
because remember that was the co-conspirator trial.
But they did overturn it and send
did.
it back.
Defense attorneys further argued that this new theory effectively abandoned the blood spatter evidence, which had been the primary forensic evidence used to convict David Camm to the crime.
That was in the
Connect.
first trial.
Connect David Camm to the crime. After the verdict, defense attorney Richard Kamen criticized the prosecution's shift in strategy, stating that the jury had recognized the weakness of the case. So on October 24th, 2013, the jury found David Camm not guilty on all charges.
Oh, okay.
His attorneys described the verdict as a vindication. By that point, NBC News reported that Floyd County had spent an estimated $4.5 million prosecuting this case. So
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit more.
I don't want to.
Public reaction on the verdict was divided. Many residents in Louisville and southern Indiana areas, heavily exposed to media coverage of the case, expressed shock at the acquittal. One local resident said they believed that David Camm should not have been released. On a national level, the case drew significant attention from wrongful conviction advocacy organizations, many of which David Camm's earlier convictions represented serious miscarriages of justice. So,
Nobody gets found innocent, okay? We've said this before.
Right.
He was found not guilty this last time because, and here's the part where I'm going to agree that is finally the right outcome. There was never enough valid evidence to convict in this case.
Right.
And I think that this jury got it right based off of what I'm hearing only. But I can also see where residents and citizens would be incredulous about this because they're hearing the media perception and what's being told to them primarily by who? Law enforcement, the prosecution. They're not getting the full strategy. Maybe some statements from the defense attorneys post-trial, but this man has maintained his innocence throughout all of these trials and continued to appeal. So I understand why members of the public will often come at me or other people making these decisions because they only have one perspective. You have to have respect for the jurors in that case. The third trial where they were finally presented with everything and were able to make a decision. The jurors in the previous trials that occurred, I don't have a problem with them. They were going based off the evidence that was allowed to come in, and they made a decision based off of that, and that doesn't shock anyone. That's why there were grounds for appeal, and it was appealed and sent back.
Exactly.
You have to have faith in the jurors making the decision. That's why we have this adversarial form of judiciary, of government in trials.
And I have some more here. Bill Lamb, president and general manager of WDRB, the Fox affiliate in Louisville, later issued a public apology to David Camm. He acknowledged previously criticizing David Camm's attorney for pursuing additional appeals and questioning why taxpayers should continue to fund repeated trials. He stated that the acquittal provided the answer because David Camm was not guilty. And a juror from the third trial later commented that while they hoped investigators had not intentionally tried to convict an innocent man, it appeared that the state and police struggled to acknowledge having made a mistake. Even the jurors, that's from a juror, acknowledging that. I want to talk more about this blood spatter stuff.
Okay.
The case drew widespread criticism for its heavy reliance on blood spatter analysis during the original 2002 conviction, right? Former federal prosecutor Kent Wicker noted that blood spatter evidence has faced increasing scrutiny, particularly after a 2009 National Academy of Science report criticized the scientific foundations of the discipline. The report called for greater standardization and warned that analysis often overstated the certainty, the analysts, analysts had often, historically speaking, overstated the certainty of their conclusions in court, right?
Sure.
And that's important. Then Dr. Robert Schaller, founding director of the Penn State Forensic Science Program, also criticized the use of blood spatter evidence in the David Camm case. He stated that the small number of stains placed the analysis at the edge of reliability and described blood stain pattern analysis as essentially guesswork, lacking sufficient underlying scientific validation, right?
Blood spatter experts are few and far between in terms of just being an expert in that one thing. I'm not saying they're not out there and they don't exist, but it's not an exact science. It's just not.
It's not. And he emphasized, actually, Dr. Robert Schaller emphasized that competing expert opinions in the case effectively resulted in a high error rate.
Yes.
Right? Like that's... But let's talk about the evidence of misconduct related to blood spatter analysis emerging during the third trial when Rob Stites testified for the defense.
Like made-up expertise?
Well, Rob Stites testified for the defense, not the prosecution this time. The first trial, he testified for the prosecution. By the third trial, he testified for the defense, and he admitted that he had committed perjury during the first two trials.
That's a big felony. Mm-hmm. Bye, career.
His claims that the stain on David Camm's shirt were high-velocity impact spray that formed the basis of the probable cause affidavit that led to David Camm's arrest and played a significant role in his earlier convictions. Rob Stites admitted that he had falsely represented himself as a qualified blood pattern analyst and as a professor working toward a PhD, credentials that were later shown to be fabricated.
Why?
Well, Stites claimed...
Why did he do
You're
this?
not going to like this. He claimed...
Why did he admit it?
Well...
Because they found him out.
Uh-huh.
You're way better to be honest once you get found out.
Rob Stites claimed that Floyd County prosecutor at the time, Stan Faith, remember him?
Yeah.
Helped construct these false qualifications. He explained that he had been sent to the crime scene by Rod Englert, to photograph and take notes, despite having no formal training or professional experience in crime scene analysis. His notes were later incorporated into the probable cause affidavit, identifying him incorrectly as a crime scene reconstructionalist.
Why?
Several claims in his notes, such as alleged blood patterns on the garage door and evidence of a bleach cleanup, were later proven false. Rob Stites stated that the misinterpretation of the crime scene resulted from misunderstanding how blood appears after serum separation. He expressed regret for his actions, and he was never charged with perjury. He wasn't the one that wrote himself. He just handed his notes to he was sent out by his superior, Rod, right?
Yeah.
And he took the pictures and he took the notes. And it was his notes that were inappropriately labeled with an inappropriate title and then used as the basis.
But Charnell, he testified in the first trial.
He did.
And there was opportunity to correct this error.
Sure was.
That's where the felony perjury is.
Absolutely.
This is where he says, whoa. This is what I do think happened, but they incorrectly characterized me as being this, or that, or with this information. I just want to be honest that this is what my actual credentials are, and this is what I think happened and why.
But put yourself in his position. His career's done then because Stan Faith helped construct, the prosecutor helped construct the false qualifications. His superior went along with it as well. And so I do think this was just simply a case of I only get paid to be a crime scene photographer, so I'm making, $30,000 a year, and I can't afford to lose my job, and so I'm going to do the wrong thing these first two times and then correct it and do the right thing finally. By the third trial, the defense centered much of its case on alleged police and prosecutorial misconduct.
Well, and they should have.
Yep. They argued that investigators failed at critical points in evidence collection and in the investigation of Charles Boney as a suspect. The sweatshirt recovered at the scene contained his DNA, his girlfriend's DNA, his prison nickname, and his Department of Corrections identification number. Kim Camm's shoes were also found neatly arranged on the vehicle, an element consistent with Charles Boney's documented history of fetish-driven crimes involving stolen shoes. The defense questioned how such evidence was missed, particularly after being told that it had been thoroughly examined. The defense further argued that the police should have questioned Charles Boney's credibility earlier, citing numerous changes in his story. Many details, including the claim that the gun had been wrapped in the sweatshirt, were introduced during interviews by detectives and later incorporated into Charles Boney's account. So the detectives were the one feeding them, you wrapped the gun in the sweatshirt, right? Okay, we've seen that time and time again happen. Criminal justice professor Dr. Kim Rosimo testified that Charles Boney was never properly investigated and that detectives treated him as an inconsistency rather than a suspect.
I'd love to see his interrogation.
Well, he gave multiple confessions and tailored his statements to fit contradictions identified by the police. He attributed the investigative failures to confirmation bias, asserting that investigators focused on evidence supporting their belief in David Camm's guilt while minimizing contradictory information.
And we know that happens. We've seen it. And sometimes it's happened in cases without malicious intent.
Jurors of the third trial later stated that they agreed with the defense's criticisms, noting that the investigators did appear to make the evidence conform to their theory rather than following where it actually led. Lead defense attorney Richard Camm accused investigators of feeding Charles Boney details and pressuring him to testify against David Camm by exploiting his fear of racial bias in the justice system.
Racial bias was one of these people, or both of these people.
No,
black?
Hold on. The defense cited multiple undocumented phone calls between Charles Boney and the prosecutor's office in the weeks leading up to his arrest.
Interesting.
Additional allegations including evidence tampering by Myron Wilkerson, a police officer and distant relative of Charles Boney, who removed Kim Camm's phone, the victim, Kim Camm, from the evidence storage and returned it wiped free of fingerprints.
Lovely.
Wilkerson died before the third trial and was never charged.
How unfortunate.
Claims of witness tampering also arose because DNA analyst Lynn Schomahorn stated that she was threatened when she refused to falsely testify about DNA findings.
Now it all comes out.
Yep. Fingerprint analyst John Singleton reported being pressured to alter his testimony. The defense also accused prosecutors of presenting misleading testimony concerning molestation allegations, including conflicting medical opinions that jurors later said heavily influenced their verdict. Schomahorn further claimed that Mr. Faith, Prosecutor Faith, attempted to have her offer fabricated testimony regarding non-existent forensic tests. These incidents, along with Rob Stite's admitted perjury, were later documented in a forensic science textbook examining examiner misconduct. This case is now used to show exactly why you don't do this corrupt bullshit. In 2005, so this is between the first and second trials, okay? The prosecution witness, Rod Englert, remember him? He was the dude who sent the other dude who took the crime scene photographer. It's his boss. That's who Rod is. He filed a lawsuit against several of the defense witnesses in a libel case because
libel.
What did I say?
Libel.
Did I say libel?
That's
Sorry.
how it's spelled. It's no big deal. And libel.
I just didn't hear myself.
Well, and libel's civil. So.
Yeah. Yep. The lawsuit accused the defendants of saying that Rob embellished the credentials and misrepresented the qualifications and experience and provided false testimony in court. He testified for the prosecution that David Camm had the high-velocity blood splatter on the shirt and he was wearing. So I just find it funny that in the middle of all this, now all this corruption has come out, right? But in 2005, he had the audacity to be like, I'm going to file a lawsuit because you are saying that I'm the one that Well, someone did. Who was in charge of taking that dude's notes?
Right.
And making him qualified somehow. Also, David Camm faced a civil suit filed by his late wife's parents over the estimated $625,000. I think I said $650 earlier. My apologies, it's $625 that David Camm was set to collect from life insurance and Kim Camm's 401k fund. As of 2013, Frank and Janice Wren steadfastly maintained that they believe David Camm is guilty.
Really?
They believe the story of Charles Boney. And I am sure,
That's sad.
well, I'm
I feel
sure
bad for them.
hearing,
I mean, yeah. but
Yeah.
That's
and I'm sure
that's-
hearing of their son-in-law's affairs put a bad taste in their
Sure.
mouth from the beginning, right? Maybe they've seen him be an
Maybe they
asshole
never liked
before.
him. I mean,
Exactly.
He was a
exactly.
trooper for how long?
Yep. Yeah, 10
Not
years.
always easy,
No,
guys.
Yeah.
10 years. Yep. In May 2014, David Camm served notice of his intent to sue Floyd County and the state of Indiana for $30 million.
Not shocked.
No. Mm-mm. He settled with the county for $450,000. And then in January 2018, David Camm's civil rights lawsuit against members of the Indiana State Police, prosecutors, and other officials was actually dismissed by the U.S. District Judge Tanya Walton Pratt. In the ruling, the court explained that it believed that there had been probable cause to charge him with the murder, and due to the Indiana's Tort Claim Act and some of the defendants were immune to this liability.
There's governmental immunity if
It-
you use good faith to exercise probable cause.
Yes. But
arrests.
you may be happy to hear that some more things go on. And long story short, David Camm was able to settle a final lawsuit with the state that was announced April 28th, 2022, and he was awarded $4.6 million from the state of Indiana.
Okay.
Was David Camm incarcerated
Yes.
in between
Yes,
all these
yeah,
hearings?
13
He was-
years.
because he was convicted of murder. So when you are appealing, you are waiting there serving time
Yeah.
while they make a decision on your appeal. And then when it gets sent back for a trial, you start the case from the beginning with usually a high to no bond being allowed, flight risk, those type of things are considered, and you just start all over again. So he never saw the light of day. They never granted him bond from what I heard about when
I
he
didn't
was
find that he
when he
w-
was
no.
retried.
Yep. So yeah, I think that after losing your children and your wife by a foot fetish maniac
Foot fetish felon.
and do 13 years of prison for a wrongful conviction, I think that's worth $4.6 million from the state when they couldn't follow the evidence.
Hey, I don't make those decisions. Somebody else made that decision, and it was probably fair.
Yep.
Were any of these the early prosecutors? Were they charged?
They
with
were
anything?
they were deemed that they were immune to the liability.
Prob-
Probably
why
the
you said that.
civil
But-
liability for governmental immunity, but
Yes.
it doesn't mean that you aren't subject to misconduct and ethical
Yes.
violations with the bar. So you could have complaints made about you. People complain about me all the time. It's anybody unhappy, really. But sometimes there's truth to these things, and you can be turned into, if there's a prosecutors association or you're just your bar association of your state, for professional misconduct. And
Yes.
professional misconduct can have you suspended, disbarred. You could lose your license. You could have large penalties. Lots of things can happen. Or you could just not get reelected again, like what happened to Mr.
Correct.
Faith.
And what really happened, so
Faith?
in 2000, Mr. Faith, what really happened in 2018, the civil lawsuit essentially was saying, no, they're immune to the liability. But then September 10th, 2019, according to Wikipedia, the United States Court of Appeals for the Seventh Circuit reversed the district court, in part saying, quote, in sum, we reverse and remand for trial on Camm's Fourth Amendment claim against Stites, that is the photographer, Englert, that's his boss, Faith, that's the prosecutor, and Clemens, that was a lead detective, to the extent that the claim rests on the first probable cause affidavit. Trial is also warranted on the Brady claim against the same four defendants for suppression.
That's when you're a liar.
Yep.
Just to throw Brady
Yes.
out there in general terms.
It is. Thank you. I made note of that to explain
Yeah.
what that is. Thank you.
And if you have a Brady violation, technically you have to disclose that every time you testify if you're a police officer.
Yep.
And if your prosecutor knows and they don't do it, then they're in trouble.
Then they're in trouble. Yeah. And so for the same four defendants for suppression of Stites' lack of qualification, and against Faith and Clemens for suppression of the facts surrounding their handling of the DNA profile on Charles Boney's sweatshirt. Okay. In all other respects, we affirm the judgment. So they're saying they do agree with some of it, right? But the reversal allowed David Camm to sue for false arrest. And
Great.
that's when the settlement came in
At the 4
at
plus
for
million.
4.6 million with the state of Indiana. And that is the horrific story of David Camm and how he spent 13 years in prison for the murder of his beautiful wife, Kimberly, and 7-year-old son, Bradley, and 5-year-old daughter, Jill.
Your brother had a really great case suggestion.
He
here.
did. He did. You knew
It's
it would
an
be
important,
right up our
important
alley.
case. This is an important case.
Thanks, Nick.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks, Nick.
Yeah, exactly.
My anxiety's through the roof.
I'm glad to get
Clutching
that
this
one done.
mouse right here.
That-
My little purple dormouse.
Seriously.
He's so sweet.
That was absolutely a lot. During research, even
I've
was
never been
like,
called that before. Have you?
"Ooh, a lot." Don't you get called that daily? Probably. I know I
You're
do.
a lot.
I've called you that.
I know.
We need
Rude.
something wholesome, you guys.
Yes, please give me something wholesome.
And you know, this is a shameful plug for
Your dogs.
no
Oh.
the dogs. Well, yeah, the dogs I follow on
Oh,
social
okay.
media because
Just
that's really
checking.
all I follow on social media are dogs.
I follow
And-
my kitty cats.
And this isn't a real dog; it's a human talking for a dog, but it is cute, and I love Coco Doodle.
As opposed to all the things we follow where the animals speak for themselves.
Right.
Well, they'll do like cute pictures of a real dog and stuff. This is really
Okay.
just a human, but
I like the ones where the person's behind them with with hands doing
yes,
stuff.
yes.
The poor dog's just sitting there at the table like,
Yeah.
I think this is a real dog, but it's probably AI making it like I don't
Is it
know.
talking
It's
in a
well,
human voice?
of course,
Okay.
but that's a voiceover.
That's
like
clearly real then.
It's
Go
it's a
ahead.
voiceover. Anyway, let me turn this up because the Coco went camping. Okay, so this is all about Coco being
You're
interviewed
not tied up anymore?
on
No, I'm currently not tied up.
You're not tied up anymore is how it starts.
But
I
it
just
depends on
wanted-
how nice you talk to me, Siri.
Right. I wanted to make sure that that's the beginning of the clip, by the way. That wasn't Siri asking something weird.
Coco, you're not tied up anymore?
Yeah, I'm free now. I had a timeout yesterday. I went to another tent and ate their meat.
A timeout?
oh,
Yeah, I had time to think.
Did you?
No. No more timeout today. The one who ate the meat, that was yesterday, Coco. Today is another happy day.
cute.
But I can't disappear. I know the rules. So I run and roll on the ground, and then I roll again. This place smells like everything.
Everything?
Grass, dirt, other animals, and things I don't know.
Mommy and Daddy are okay with that?
Yeah, usually they tell me to stop. But here, they just watch me. I think it's okay here. Today is a good day. I think I'm part of nature now.
Coco, you're not tied up anymore?
Isn't
Yeah.
that cute?
Do you know who creates these AI things? Millennials who have decided that their children are their pets. That their
children-
pets are their children.
Pets are their
They
children.
have foregone birth and have decided
Yep.
to give human voices
to their dogs.
animals.
And this little Coco is dressed in a cute little sweatshirt and hat for camping.
The fact
Give
that
her-
she
give
doesn't
her-
have these outfits for her dogs now.
I know.
I'd
Give
find
her-
it
I don't.
shocking.
You know who Neil Brennan is?
Do I? Comedian?
Yeah, he was a comedian. He was a writer for the Chappelle Show.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of a wormy guy. I think he's hilarious. I literally was just watching it the other night, and he's like, all these women are like, oh, I'm a dog mom. He's like, you know who else is a dog mom? That dog's mom that you took it from.
Right. Yeah. That's
Like, it's
that's
a
true.
rescue. Aren't they all?
Yeah.
He's like, do you have any dogs that are thriving?
I actually refer to some of my children as that.
Technically, we stole
Rescues?
them. Yeah. We stole right. I can refer to my husband as that. Interesting.
True.
Huh, this is how we're alike and
I'll bet-
different.
Yes.
Does my wife tell me that?
100%.
Yeah. She probably calls you her rescue.
This is my husband, Jason.
He's a rescue. I think I'm going to start introducing Matt that way. Oh, gosh. It'll all make sense, too. Anyway, thank you all so much for hanging in with us this week and taking us wherever that you may go and whatever you're doing. We really appreciate it. We know your time is valuable, and so we're honored that you pick us to spend time with. We do hope that you keep it curious.
Keep listening.
Till next time.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, used to chasing tears in a different kind of grind. Helping little ones, leaving our old selves behind. Charnell, Jason, Megan, a trio strong and true. But the system wore us out, needed something fresh and new. So we flipped the script, found the mic and the beat. From deep investigations to stories bittersweet. Prosecutor, the judge, that's Megan on the mic. Charnell digs the dirt, makes sure the facts are right. Crime curious, yeah, that's the name we claim. Shaking our grief, fanning the curious flame. From global listeners to the brain bag we provide. Keep it curious, keep listening with nowhere to hide. Jason's got the wisdom and the jokes to make us smile. Keeps the energy flowing for every single mile. We dive into the dark where the mysteries reside. Unraveling the truth with nowhere left to hide. Laws and evidence, Megan lays it down with grace. While Charnell's deep research sets the compelling pace. Crime curious, yeah, that's the name we claim. Shaking our grief, fanning the curious flame. From global listeners to the brain bag we provide. Keep it curious, keep listening with nowhere to hide. About the raccoon, some secrets we just keep. But every week we're digging secrets buried deep. For every mind that wonders, for every soul that seeks, we're here to break it down in our Crime Curious Speaks. Crime Curious, yeah, that's the name.